In part 3 of our little mini-series in the big story focusing on prophets and kings, today we meet a new prophet, a guy named Nathan. Samuel has made David the king. David's now sitting on the throne. I mean, an actual throne, not on the toilet. And he's ruling over Jerusalem and all of the united tribes of Israel. Until one day, Nathan comes to him and tells him a story. "There was once a man," begins Nathan. "A rich man, a powerful man, an important man who had all the wealth he could ever want. He had incredible things in his house. He had fast cars. He had, maybe not fast cars, but he did have loads of sheep. He had sheep that he would use for wool to make nice jumpers for the winter. He had sheep that he would sell at market to make more money to put in his bank account. He had sheep that he would use to make lamb kebabs. He had fields full of sheep. There was another man," said Nathan in the story. "This man was like the polar opposite of the first man. He was poor. He had nothing. He didn't have a nice expensive house. He didn't have nice food to eat. He didn't have stuff to show off. He had one sheep. This sheep wasn't used. It wasn't sold at market or eaten in a kebab. This sheep was more like a member of the family. It was a prized possession of this poor man. It was the only thing he really had that gave him joy. The sheep would follow him everywhere, and the man loved the sheep like a member of his family. One day, there's a knock on the door and a visitor arrives, an old friend at the house of the rich man. "Hey," says the friend, "I'm here, finally. Good to see you, old buddy. Let's have dinner together. I've come to stay at your house." The rich man looks around all that he's got and decides what he'll cook for dinner. The poor man's sheep. He goes over and he rips this cute little fluffy lamb away from the poor man and he grills it on the barbecue and serves it up for dinner. David is outraged. Can you believe it? What an unbelievably dark, evil person this rich man was. How dare he, when he had everything he could possibly want, take the one thing that he shouldn't have really needed, the one thing that was loved by somebody else? How could... And in the middle of his outrage, David realizes just how clever this story was. It wasn't really a story about a rich man and a sheep. It was a story about a rich king taking what wasn't his. You see, there's a reason Nathan has come to visit David today, and the reason is this, that David had some powerful friends, some great friends, some people that hung around with him in his palace and came around for dinner, some people that did everything with him. One of these friends was named Uriah. One day, David decides to get his best mate Uriah killed. Why? Because David really fancies Bathsheba, Uriah's wife. And so, having killed his best mate, he takes Bathsheba into the palace and marries her. He's done exactly the same, but with people, than the man in the story did with sheep. He's taken something that wasn't his, a prized, loved wife of his best mate, and stolen it away and made her his own. Because when you're king, you can do whatever you want, and nobody's ever going to stop you, because power is great. As soon as he realizes that he is the moral of the story, that he is the one that's being evil and dark, that he is the one that needs to beg for forgiveness, David does exactly that. He gets on his knees and he weeps and he wails and he cries out to God, "Please forgive me. I cannot believe what evil has been exposed in my own life. I need to change." And this, as horrible as the story is a great model for us to follow. Remember the rules that were given ages ago in the big story, the rules that if we follow them make us different and distinct, the rules that speak of the love and character of God, the rules that say things like, don't take somebody else's wife. Well, if we follow them, then we're going to lead lives that are good and kind and protect others rather than try and steal things for our own personal gain. Secondly, it helps us to understand that power and privilege and pride, they're never normally good things. They're always attractive, but they always poison people. They always make people puffed up in their own arrogance and assume that they can do whatever they want. They're things to be avoided at all costs. And third, well, David could have dug his heels in. He could have said, you know what, I'm king. I get to do whatever I want. It's part of the job of being a king. So you can't tell me what to do. Be off with you, Nathan, and off with his head whilst you're at it. But he didn't. He showed humility. He asked for forgiveness. He couldn't put right everything that he'd done, but he could show grace, and he could be different in the future. And that is a model for all of us.